Hello, come on in. I feel like I've not been here in ages. If you've been keeping up with some of the vlogs that I've been putting up recently, I had my Vampire Academy vlogs. The second part I think will be up the next video after this one, and then the Oxford one. I've been travelling around a little bit, obviously doing lateral flows, wearing masks, testing. I've been double vaxxed, so I feel safe-ish doing it. I just want to put a little disclaimer out there that I'm doing it as safely as I possibly can, and I'm still wearing masks and distancing even though that's not official guidance or whatever. What was my point again? Oh yeah, I've been sort of bopping around a little bit, so I feel like I've not been here home in my reading chair in a very long time to film a video, so I'm very excited to chat about some books with you today. And I'm going to be chatting about all the books that I read in the month of July. During the month of July I knew that this wrap up was going to be a little bit dry because all I read was the entire Vampire Academy series for the read along that me and Shannon were hosting, and The Water Cure, which was my book club book. So obviously, oh hello, there's a cat at my window. Hello. And obviously my thoughts on the Vampire Academy reread will be primarily in the vlogs, and my thoughts on The Water Cure, which is my book club book, will be in the book club discussion that's already up on my channel. So I don't have that much to say here. I will obviously do a little bit of a summary, but because this video is going to be a little bit shorter than my usual wrap up, I'm going to just whack in a little TBR for the month of August, because you know what? I read 7 books this month and I'm feeling a bit cocky, so I thought I'm gonna do a TBR. I always thought that I shouldn't do TBRs because I'm such a mood reader. I just want to read what I'm in the mood for. I don't want to constrain myself with a TBR. But when I look at the months of the year, this year that I've read the most books, it was February where I read 11 books, and then July where I read 7, and in both of those months, in February I had Wilsathon, and then in July I had the Vampire Academy read along. So I've learned 2 things there: that potentially having a set TBR actually motivates me to read more because I feel like I'll let people down if I don't, and 2, maybe rereads is the way to go, and I breeze through them a lot quicker than I do with books I've not read before. I don't know, interesting. Anyway, I've rambled enough, let's just get on to the books. So I actually told a bit of a white lie, and I have yet to finish the last book in the Vampire Academy series. I've only got about 100 pages left, and so it will be finished at the beginning of August, but I'm counting it in the July wrap up anyway because spiritually that feels right. I had so much fun rereading this series. You will see if you've been watching the vlog. I was going to say the vlogs, but the second one's not up yet, so if you've watched the single vlog I did on the first 3 books, so much fun, honestly. I forgot that this series moves at such a breakneck speed. Literally so much is happening all of the time, and it's just so silly and it's so fun. It's vampires in high school, but there's also royalty involved. There are royal vampires and all the politics that go on between the royal vampires, and then just the politics of being at high school. And then there's elemental magic that comes into play, and there's a fifth element that, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've read it you'll know. There's a 5th element that's a really unstable one, and the people who use it have really bad sort of mental health struggles and depression and really adverse side effects, and it sort of goes to a lot of places that you're not really expecting. There's 3 prison breaks during it, there's 2 court trials. It's a lot for a YA series that just sort of started out as sexy vampires in high school. It really progresses quite quickly on from that into various other realms, and I had a great time. The other thing I would say though is that the one aspect that I didn't expect to age well in the novels, simply because I didn't like it the first time around that I read it as an impressionable 13-year-old, even then I knew it was iffy and not great, is the romantic relationship between Rose and her instructor Dimitri. Rose is 17 at the beginning of the books, and her hot Russian instructor Dimitri is 24 years old, and that's a big deal. They keep going on about how old he is and how he's seen the world and he's so much more learned than she is. And when I read it at 13, I was like, yeah, ew, he's so old, why would she want to be with him? And then rereading this series as a 23-year-old, he's going to be 24 this year, I was like, ow, ow. Having said that though, I am going to be 24 in October and I'm not about to turn around and date a 17-year-old. That's weird. So yeah, that was an element of the books that I just never was able to vibe with, and the fact that they bring in this sort of love triangle between Rose, Dimitri and Adrian is clearly the better, more age-appropriate choice. I just will never get it. I will never get why Rose sidelines Adrian. Like, is it really first forbidden love? Like, or is it grooming? Do you know? I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I am actually intrigued to see how they get around this in the TV show, whether that's aging Rose and Lissa up potentially or making Dimitri younger. I really don't know how they're gonna get around it because it just doesn't feel good. And it's meant to be like this hot, forbidden, like teacher-student relationship thing. And I just never vibed with that kind of stuff. Like, it just always felt skeevy to me. So, although I'm incredibly excited to see the TV show of, oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Another thing I learned while rereading is that actually my memory's not as bad as I thought it was. Like, I always say, ugh, my memory sucks, and whenever I get into a big series that's like still coming out, it's so frustrating because you have to wait a year for the book, and in that year I just forget everything I've read about the previous book. And that's sort of true. Like, before starting this reread I was like, head empty, no idea what I'm in for, to be honest. But once I got to like book 2, you know, it's just muscle memory, like little bits of things start to come back to you, and it is sort of like riding a bike. You just sort of get back into the flow of the series, and when a new character is mentioned, you're like, oh yeah, this and then this will happen, and all of that stuff. So that was kind of nice. I felt like less inadequate potentially than I did at the start, which is always a plus. So yeah, if you haven't gotten into this series yet and you want something that is just fun and a little bit silly and very dramatic and fast paced and has vampires and like sexy boys in it, and like magic and political intrigue a little bit, go on, have a go. It's fun. I mean, it's not a waste of time if you're having fun, is it? And of course, if you want more detailed thoughts on like the actual, maybe specific things that happen in the plot, if you've already read the books, you can go and watch my vlog that I did, and then the one that's coming out soon. Cool. But in the midst of my Vampire Academy haze, I had to find time to read The Water Cure, because that was our Briar Rose Book Club book for the month of July, and our discussion on this is already up on my channel, so if you want more details about this book that are spoilery, so either you've read it or you don't want to read it, go and watch that discussion and you can find out all there is to find out about this book. So yeah, this book is labelled as a feminist dystopia, and we're following 3 sisters, Grace, Leah and Skye, as they live out their days on a remote island in an abandoned hotel where their parents have taught them for all of their lives to be fearful and scared of men who are the toxin from the mainland, which, you know, mood. And then suddenly 3 men wash up on this remote island and the girls have to encounter men and their toxicity for the first time. The standout feature of this book is definitely the writing style. It has such a lyrical, hypnotic way of telling the story, and there are some really powerful images and themes in this book. However, it is a short book, and for something that is labelled a feminist dystopia, or a dystopia at all, there isn't a lot of detail about the world, and that makes sense. I mean, it's more about the individuals in the situation, the women and the men, and the sort of power that shifts between them. The girls also have sort of abusive parents that make them carry out these treatments and rituals to like purge their bodies, and a lot of them are painful and violent rituals. So there is a lot going on the island, and it is a lot about the relationships between the sisters, between the parents and the daughters, between the girls and the men. All of this is happening, so you don't get a lot of detail about what has happened at the mainland, what the world looks like. It is very just cut off and insular, and perhaps that's the point, because that's how these girls have lived their lives, their whole lives. And it does set up this sort of pressure cooker situation of like, these girls are alone, being taught to fear men, skeevy men wash up, and they're just like locked together. What's going to happen? It sets up this sort of pressure cooker situation, and what happens as a result of that wasn't a surprise to me anyway. I think there's a lot of things that are revealed at the end that are supposed to be shocking or twists or this sort of heart-pounding ending, and I just wasn't surprised at all. It just played out in the way that I thought it would play out. So ultimately, if you're interested in this sort of thing, it's compared a lot to Margaret Atwood books like The Handmaid's Tale. I definitely would recommend it if that's something that you really enjoy, sort of gender politics and like really enigmatic and hypnotic prose. But if you're looking for like a really fleshed out, thrilling story, which is sometimes described to be, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I really enjoyed the experience of reading it, and I really enjoyed the experience of discussing it with Bea on our live show and with Sylvie, who, you know, was in the chat. And there are definitely quotes that will really stay with me from this book, but ultimately I don't think it's like 5 out of 5 stunning must read. And I think there are people who have done this sort of thing better, i.e. Margaret Atwood, who this keeps being compared to. So yeah. That's what I have to say, and if you want more details, like I said, my live show will be linked somewhere and it's on my channel. I did say I was going to do an August TBR because I didn't have a lot to say about the books that I did read in the month because there's already separate videos on them, and then I did just ramble for ages about those separate books, so what do? I'll run through my August TBR real quick because I said I would and I got it out and it's here and blah. So as you can see, I got a little bit cocky. I read a 6-book series in a month. I thought, you know what? I'll conquer the fucking world. I'll set myself a huge August TBR and then drop it on the floor like a moron. Oh my god. Okay, we're back. It's fine. The highest priority on my August TBR is Pandora's Jar, Women in the Greek Myths by Natalie Haynes, because it is our August pick for the Briar Rose Book Club, the book club that I run with my gorgeous friend Bea. And if you're interested in this book and you just haven't got around to it yet, read it with us for the month of August. We would love to have you on board and come to the live show, all that good stuff. It's going to be really, really fun. This is our first non-fiction pick for the book club, so I'm really intrigued to see what kind of discussion topics that throws up and how it's going to be different to like the ones that we've picked before, obviously. But again, it's that same focus on women and girlhood and sort of magic, folklore, that kind of vibe. So I am very excited to get to this one. It's been on my TBR for a very long time, and this month I'm going to finally get to it. There's another book club read that I'm going to be reading in August that isn't currently with me because I ordered it cheaply off of Depop so that I could read it this month, and that is Queenie by Kenneth Carty-Williams, and this is the August pick for the I Should Have Read That book club, which is hosted by Shannon from 155 Books, Karis from Karis's Corner, and Charlotte from Queenie Reads, and I'm very excited to read Queenie. Again, one of those books that I should have read, and that's the whole theme of the book club, is that we're reading books that like you should have read by now, books that are really hyped or really classic books. So it's one that's been on my radar for a very long time that I really want to get to, so I'm gonna be reading that this month as well. And sort of in a similar thematic vein to Queenie, I want to read Ghost by Dolly Alderton, which is another sort of young millennial woman making her way in the world, or as Leanne Rose from Leanne Rose calls the genre, young women trying to figure their shit out. Love that as a genre. Please, if you've got any recommendations for that, let me know. But Ghost by Dolly Alderton is a book that is often heralded in those sort of recommendations, the millennial woman trying to work out how to live her life and what she wants and fall in love and all that stuff. And this is one that I got from the library quite a few weeks ago. I've renewed it twice, so I really want to get to it this month so that I can return it to the library for anyone else who wants to read it. I'm a bad library goer and I need to be better. So those 3 books that I mentioned are like the top priorities for August, and then there's just like a bunch that I would sort of like to get to, and I have been very cocky because these are some like thick books. But anyway, again in the vein of young woman trying to figure her shit out is Snowflake by Louise Nealon, which I got for free from Readers First, because that's the thing that I do, and once you reach a certain number of points on there you can pick a book that they send you for free. I picked this one because it sounded up my street, and then Leanne read it and really liked it, so I trust Leanne and I like this genre, so I'm ready for this, and it's beautiful. I love this cover, this sort of duochrome. I've said this before when I hold it, but just gorgeous object that I really want to get to, and it seems thematically appropriate to be reading with Queenie and ghosts and all of that, so this is going to be a very millennial woman figuring her stuff out month for me, which makes sense because I am on the cusp of Gen Z millennial, trying and failing to figure my shit out currently, so maybe these books will guide me, maybe that will help. So my cocky ass put The Tyrant's Tomb and The Tower of Nero on this, both by Rick Riordan, and the last two books in the Trials of Apollo series, because these were both on my summer TBR that I set right at the beginning of summer, and I haven't got to them yet, but they are quite quick reads, so even though they look thick and intimidating and chunky, they do read quite quickly, and I'm hoping to find the audiobooks for either of these because they're always quite fun. So these are on my radar for August because I want to finish them before the summer ends, and also Greek mythology ties in nicely with Pandora's Jar. It's just gonna be a vibe. And then these last few are like if I have time, which I probably won't, let's be honest, because I did just get a bit cocky. I read a whole series in a month and I was like, I can do it all. And I think because the series that I read was obviously a reread, I'm very conscious of the fact that I read 6 books that were not on my TBR pile. So the TBR pile has only gone down by 1 book, and that was The Water Cure, which is a very thin book. So the pile is still thick. She thick and she chunky, and she's gonna fall and kill me. So that's why I think I've just had a spur of like, I need to read all the books on my TBR right now, otherwise it's gonna fall. So the next book that I want to get to in the month of August is The House in the Cerulean Sea, simply because it is so hyped on BookTube and it just has such a wonderful, lovely summary cover that I feel like if I don't get to it in the summer, not that I can't read it at another time of the year, but like I just feel like it would be enhanced by reading it around this time, and I just want to get to it. It's been so hyped and I want to see what I think of it for myself. The next one is a poetry collection that I hauled a while back, and that is It's Hard to Be Hip Over 30 by Judith Viors. This is a Persephone Books collection. Again, sort of woman trying to figure her shit out, but this is poetry and it's skewed probably a bit older than the ones that I've already mentioned in this video, and it's a short little not intimidating one, so I'm thinking maybe I can like breeze through it at the beginning of the month and like get some momentum going. Maybe, we'll see. I've also just put Her Body and Other Parties on this list simply because I was looking at my TBR pile being like, oh, what do I want to read? And this just was screaming out to me because everyone has reviewed it very well and said amazing things about it, so if I have time, I want to get to that. And the last one that I've put on my August TBR, which the more that I sit here, the more that I'm like, Anna, you're ridiculous, you're not going to get to all of these books. But anyway, it's Dear Reader by, not Dear Reader, what am I talking about? The Fran Lebowitz Reader, which is just collections of essays and writings by Fran Lebowitz, who is a prominent New York figure who's very funny and witty and comedic and has a lot to say about life and art and politics and culture and things. And I was first introduced to Fran and her wonderful aura, personality, vibe, whatever you want to call it, through the Netflix series Pretend It's a City, which was created by Martin Scorsese, who's a very close friend of hers and obviously a very famous film director. And they just sit around and walk around New York and talk about New York and their lives and art and politics and all of this stuff, and it is just delightful. And it was my way of traveling to New York vicariously through Netflix when I couldn't travel to my favourite place in the world, New York, in quarantine. And I feel like this book is going to also potentially give me that, because a lot of what Fran talks about is linked to New York. She's a very famous New York personality. So, and also this cover is just her in New York. So I feel like this is going to give me the vibes, and it put it on my summer TBR because I wanted to travel to New York in the summer in any way that I could, and I'm hoping that this book will help me do that. So that's everything for this video. Those are the books that I read in July and the ones I want to read in August. Please let me know your thoughts on any of the books, the ones that I've read or the ones that I'm yet to read. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you very soon with another video soon. Bye!